So welcome back. Here we are. The fan has arrived. It came in this big box here. I've removed the old ceiling fan because, as you know, I lost that argument. What we have here is the 34-inch Buchholz LED indoor satin nickel downrod mount ceiling fan from Parrotuncle. Now, the link will be in the description where you can get yours. And let's unbox this and see what's all in the box, and then we'll start installing it. So here's the use and care guide for the Parrotuncle ceiling fan. And there's your standard safety instructions. Of course, always turn off the power is one of the main things to do, which I did taking down the old ceiling fan. Safety tips, little parts list here. And then we're moving on to step one. So step one is mount the bracket. I've already got a good solid box up there. We've got a pan box screwed right to the ceiling trusses. So we have a good solid mount. We don't have to worry about fortifying the mount at all. Now we can start with putting up the bracket. All right, so we're going to mount the mounting bracket to our ceiling box. Now you can see they show you three different ways you can mount this mounting bracket. One, which is where we are, is onto an outlet box. Then you just use the box screws to mount the bracket to the box. Now again, you want to make sure your box is well firmly mounted onto the ceiling structure, and mine is. And then the second method you could use here is just mounting this bracket to a wood ceiling, and then you would use wood screws that they provide. And then the other method is a concrete ceiling where you would use those concrete anchors to mount that mounting bracket. But again, back to where we are, onto an outlet box. I'm going to mount it onto the outlet box. And if I can, I'm going to run a couple screws up into the ceiling structure as well, just to be sure. If my screw holes line up well to the trusses, the ceiling trusses, then I'm going to run a couple screws up through that bracket just for extra stability, extra strength. As you can see, this is just a shallow pan box, and it is screwed right to the bottom of a truss. My trusses run this way, which happens to be north and south, but perpendicular across this box. So I'm going to put my mounting bracket up here to the box screws, and if it works and they're lined up with the trusses, I'm going to run a couple screws up into there as well. Alright, so I've got my box screws, the 832 screws started here. We'll just tighten them up. All right, now that's solid. I can hang from that, my full weight on it. However, like I mentioned, I should be able to get a screw here and one here right up into the truss, just to be extra sure, extra safety, extra stability. Let's do that. So moving on to step two, we need to loosen off this bolt, pull it out, and loosen the set screws. Move the cotter pin. Remove this bolt and the washer and the nut. Put them back together so as not to lose anything. And make sure these two set screws, one here, are loose, to allow the down rod to thread in. And the safety cable, we can unwind it. So it's ready to thread up through the down rod as well. Step 3, loosen off that set screw and take out that retaining rod. And step 4, we bring everything up through the down rod. The wire harness. And thread the down rod into the hub. Now you want to thread that down rod in to as far as it goes until the holes line up. So there's holes in the down rod and there's holes in the hub here that must line up so you can insert this bolt through. So again, bolt through the down rod. Turn this around so you can see. Put the washer on, the nut. We'll tighten that up with a Phillips screwdriver or a wrench or a socket. We'll tighten that up after. Right now I just want to get that cotter pin on there so that it can't back off, and I'll tighten that bolt and tighten these 2 set screws. Alright, so moving on to step 5, you'll be following along in your instruction manual, but we'll show you details here. First off, we put what they call the coupling cover on. So miss these steps and you got a whole lot of backtracking to do. So make sure you do follow step by step through your instructions. Feed the safety cable through, wire harness through. Now you'll see there's a rubber grommet on that so as not to scratch your down rod, and makes it fit nice and tight. Slide that down into place. They send these white gloves with you to make sure you don't get fingerprints all over the fixture, but my hands are nice and clean for once. So if I do get fingerprints on anything, I'll just wipe them off after. Next goes the canopy ring. Now make sure you put that on the right way. What it does is cover the screw holes in the canopy. So there's 2 little magnets in here, don't lose them. And they stick up onto the canopy after. So it's got to face upwards. Again, slide it through everything. Set it there for now. Next goes the canopy itself. And as you see, that canopy ring will snap onto here with the magnets and hide those 2 screw holes. Next goes the canopy. And you hear that already snapped into place, that canopy ring, via the magnets. Okay, next we have to put the hanger ball back onto the down rod. So again, thread through, wire harness, put that down, put the retaining ball or the retaining rod through. And the rod goes up into place. Got to get it in the right spot. I'm trying to give you a good image of it without myself being in the way too much. There we go. And tighten the set screw. Don't have to tighten that set screw too much because really the weight is on the ball and the rod. That screw is just to hold it in place while you get it up into position. So now we're ready for step 6, which is bring that fan and hang it on the bracket, on the ceiling bracket. So with the bracket in place, lifting up the fan, slipping it into the slot, the hanger ball into the slot, and you now turn it until you feel it drop into the slot where it locks into place right there. Now you make sure it's going to swing freely here. And now it's time to hook up the safety cable. So I've threaded the cable through that barrel, tighten the set screws, and I put it around one of those extra screws that I put into the truss, and I put a washer around it, tightened it down so it fits nicely under there. And I just got to clip off the excess cable now. So now we're ready to try to fit the receiver up into the housing without pinching any wires and such. So you kind of have to do some planning here. Each case is a little different depending on your outlet box, how deep it is, but you want to make sure you've got no wires in the way for the path you're going to take to push that receiver up into the bracket. So we've got to make our ground splices first. You got to splice those ground wires that they provide to the incoming grounding conductor and get that tied together and poke it in out of the way. Now we're ready to bring in the receiver. Making room for it, making sure there's nothing in the way that's going to get pinched off when I try to shove the receiver up into the housing. And all we have to do is connect the black and the white incoming wires to this receiver. The rest is all handled by this connector that they provide. So it's pre-wired from the fan to the receiver. You don't have to make all those load side splices on this receiver to the fan. Simply have to tie on your neutral and your hot and plug in the load side as you see here. And then we gotta finish that last connection, do a tug test. We're splicing stranded wires to a solid wire, so you want to make sure they're both evenly under the moret, and then do that tug test after you're all done to make sure that you have a good splice. Finish off those hot and neutral. Now push the receiver into place. Make sure the antenna wire is coming out and is going to fit nicely in the canopy, and tuck that safety cable up out of the way so it's not going to touch anything inside there. Now we're ready to slide the canopy up. It's keyhole slots on there, so you just have to push it up, turn it into place, and then tighten those canopy screws, slide up the cover plate, and you're ready for the next step. Make sure it's moving freely there. Alright, so as you can see, we're at step 11 now. I've installed 5 of the 6 lamps, and then the glass globes or reflectors that go on top of that. So I'll just show you how to do the last one here. Of course, you just screw in it's a 4-watt LED candelabra 11 base on these bulbs, on these lamps. These are non-dimmable. This fixture happens to come with a non-dimmable controller, so that was in the instructions. It was a little bit tough to understand whether it was dimmable or not by the probably some problems with the English translation of the instructions, but that's kind of typical these days. So we got through it. We figured out that it's not a dimmable fixture, which is okay then. So we have 4-watt standard LED lamps that you can put into this. They do not need to be dimmable. Now with the lamp installed, time for the glass globe. One other thing I did find out about is what the little white gloves are for. I can see I've got little fingerprints all over the fan that I'm going to have to follow the manufacturer's cleaning instructions and get those fingerprints wiped up. So that's why they supply you with the gloves. So with these glass globes or glass diffusers, they're kind of a frosted, very nice looking. We have to put the screw. First you have to put the little retaining cap. There's a pewter decorative cap that threads onto this brass fitting here. So that's got to go on the screw first. And then a nylon bushing goes after that. Then into the glass with that. So you've got a nylon bushing on the outside, nylon bushing on the inside. And then you just thread that screw in, get it started. Make sure it's started before you let it go. Drop the glass. So again, repeat that for the bottom screw. First the brass threaded fitting that'll hold the decorative cap. Then a nylon washer. Then put the washer or the screw through the glass. And another nylon bushing on the inside. That's to protect the glass as you tighten that screw down. If you didn't have nylon bushings there, you could over tighten the screw and break the glass. So we get the bottom one started here. finish them off with a screwdriver. Probably wouldn't recommend using a cordless drill at this stage. The risk of over tightening unless you set your clutch down way low, because you do not want to break that glass, as I mentioned. So finish tightening up those fixture screws and top them off with the pewter decorative caps. And we're done. Let's test it out. So there it is, the completed project of installing the Buchholz 34-inch LED nickel satin ceiling fan with the light kit, of course. Beautiful fan. I tell you, ceiling fans have normally been just for functionality. This one provides both functionality and style as well. It's a beautiful fan. Now we're going to test it out with the remote. Going to turn it on and start with the lowest speed of the fan. As you can see, it kind of gives a test run and starts spinning at the slowest speed. And you've got 6 speeds on this remote, all the way up to a 6. So this thing moves a lot of air, and another thing about it, quiet. It's just completely silent. We'll ramp it up to say a 4 now. And when you go to speed number 6, there's a danger of lifting the roof off of this bedroom here, said Terry jokingly. So no, it moves a lot of air. Going to be great on those hot summer nights. Beautiful fan. Appreciate the opportunity to review it with you. The remote has several functions here. We're going to shut it off now. It's got one that's called natural wind. So if you push that button, it just kind of speeds up and slows down to simulate the natural action of the wind. You can set it to be on for 1 hour, 3 hours, or 6 hours, so you don't have to get up in the middle of the night and shut it off if you forget to put the remote by your bed or wherever you happen to be mounting this fan. Lights just on or off. Provides plenty of light, so